So welcome everyone. This is Krishna Kumar hosting this webinar on behalf of Definedge Solutions. Thanks for your feedback, guys, for the last week's presentation. It was very encouraging and positive, and it was really motivating. I was happy that many of you found the presentation interesting. Thank you. Okay, so how was the week in terms of your personal trading? Was it okay? What was it? What? Nothing interesting. What was it like? Okay, a lot of you guys are saying that the trading was good. And again, I think the same old deal. If you're an index trader, there weren't too many opportunities, I believe, unless you were a position trader. But if you are someone dealing in stocks, in futures, or in cash, I think there were a lot of opportunities, and many stocks are buzzing around. So if you guys have any question based on last week's presentation, you can just type it in. So I will address this. I will address those questions to begin with, and then we can continue with this week's presentation. So we are just going to build up on what we discussed last week, and then we will try to take it to the logical conclusion in terms of how to identify buy or sell candidates, and we will try to probably link it with the pattern finder feature that's available in TradePoint. Let's see if we have time to cover all these things today. So in the meanwhile, based on last week's presentation, if you still have any doubts, any gray areas, or something that you're not very sure about, don't hesitate to ask those questions, because we are going to build layer upon layer. So if there is something that, if there is a disconnect somewhere, it's going to have a bigger repercussion later on. So if you have any questions, confusion, don't hesitate. Just type in your questions. We will sort it out, so that, as I told you last week, unless the foundation and the basics are absolutely right, there is no point trying to add layers of complexity to it. Okay, fine. So one of the questions is, how do we interpret the performance score on 4 different box sizes, and what to infer from it? Okay, we will talk about that. No problem. So before that, let's quickly take a look at what the Nifty is doing, or has done rather, and we will quickly check. Uh, okay, let's look at the spot Nifty. Let's look at 0.1% box size. So a fresh buy signal has been triggered above the moving average, which, according to my definition, is a very strong sign of a trend reversal. So for me, if you have been regularly attending, a sell signal below the moving average or a buy signal above the moving average in the daily chart is a very reliable trend reversal signal for me. We have discussed about it on quite a few occasions, and what has happened now is, we had a dip, and we have a fresh buy signal above the moving average. So for me, things have turned bullish, and the setup is also bullish, isn't it? I hope you guys remember the discussion we had on the setup last week, right? We discussed about the performance score and the setup. Do you guys remember that? Okay, so Mahesh says the week gone by was it was not too very encouraging, and a lot of stop losses were hit. Yeah, it depends on which stocks and sectors you chose, and I think definitely an element of luck does play a part. So you can't you, you can't help it, but again, the point is, as long as you stick to the process and ensure that the losses are very small and to the minimum, then this cycle will also reverse. And once you get into that profit making cycle, and if you ensure that your profitable trades are at least one and a half or two times the loss making trades, then it's all okay. So here, what you have is, we have a high pole failure, and we have a buy signal above, or we have a fresh buy signal. So the next area where price could run into some trouble is at this anchor column. So somewhere around, say, 11,000, closer to the 11,000 mark, 10,990 to 11,000 mark is where we could run into fresh trouble. And of course, for things to turn back to the bearish mode, I would ideally want to see a sell signal getting triggered and price falling below the moving average. Until these two events happen, I will not get too bearish on the Nifty. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at what the breadth indicator is telling us. Give me a second, guys. Let me just load up the breadth indicator. The PFX percent is the breadth indicator that we normally refer to, and it's in a neutral territory, so nothing to worry about. So the breadth is very accommodative. And what we will also do is take a quick look at the relative strength matrix to find out which are the sectors that are doing well. So what we are trying to do is to find out the relative performance of individual sectors against the Nifty. Can the anchor column give a target to, is the question. Typically, anchor column will not give you targets. It should not be used for targets unless otherwise it is part of the mini top or mini bottom setup, and it otherwise qualifies for the target calculation. But um, by itself, anchor column does not qualify for target calculation. A special exception being the ABC pattern, where the anchor column is part of a ABC pattern, wherein you have a big anchor column and then a consolidation and then a breakout. Then in those circumstances, you can use the anchor column for target calculation. But otherwise, not all anchor columns are eligible for calculating targets. Okay, so Akhil says he's not too convinced about the positive trend in the Nifty. He says the Nifty straddle he is holding is still falling, and based on that, he is still not very convinced about the bullish undertone. That's okay. So everyone has their approach, isn't it? So if Akhil, your expectation plays out, then sooner or later, what will happen is that a sell signal will be triggered, and the price will drop below the moving average. So I will then get into a high alert mode. That's it. Okay, so the next question is, can we identify strong and weak sectors, or sectors only, weak stocks or sectors only through the performance score? Actually, you can identify stocks for trading primarily from the performance matrix alone. You can get whatever information you want from the performance matrix, but what we recommend is you also integrate the performance matrix with the relative strength matrix, right? So if you also incorporate relative strength analysis into your overall, what shall I say, shortlisting process, then the returns, or the success ratio will be far far better. So we will get to that when we discuss about the RS metrics, and how to interpret that and all that stuff. In the forthcoming weeks, we will be talking about that, and we will get into greater detail in maybe, say, 2-3 weeks down the line. Okay, so at the moment, just stick with the flow so that there is no confusion. So this is the relative strength matrix. So if you sort it on the descending order of the performance score, it lists out which are the sectors that are doing well in relation to the Nifty. So your MNC sector is doing well, energy is doing well, infra, commodities, private bank, and of course PSU bank is sort of somewhere in the middle. So the interesting sector here is the FMCG sector, wherein the score is zero across all box sizes, and of course services sector too. Private sector banks, it's sort of, I think, turning around. In the lowest box size, the score is 2, and in the bigger box sizes the score is 0. So it is trying to get into a outperformance cycle. So if you look at the chart, the Nifty private bank got into a relative underperformance. I think, give me a second. So right from April May, if you notice, private banks have been an underperformer, and this underperformance continued until the end of September. So after that, things have turned around in October and November. If you notice, private banks have been doing far better in relation to the Nifty. And yesterday we had a fresh breakout and a buy signal above the moving average in the private banks. And if you look at the slightly higher box size, okay, in 1%, probably the data is not sufficient. So what you get to see is you had a what is it? What kind of a trap is it? A bull trap, right? A buy signal followed by a sell signal. You had a bull trap, and then if this column of X continues and triggers a buy signal, it's going to be a bullish broadening, correct? Okay, so Kiran's question is, if the performance score is -2, what is this? See, I'm sure Kiran, you didn't attend last week's webinar, and we have uploaded last week's webinar in our website. So I request you to spend some time watching that webinar. And those of you who don't know anything about the performance metrics, or if you're attending for the first time, or if you didn't attend last week, I request you to have a look at the and watch the recording that has been uploaded at the website, so that you'll get a fairly good idea about what we are talking about. I don't want to go through the presentation again. It will not be fair to the other attendees today, right? So that is the reason why we record it, and I uploaded the recording immediately on Friday itself. So I request you guys, those who did not attend last week, kindly watch the recording over the weekend. So, okay, getting back to this discussion. Yeah, today's I've clicked on the recording button. Thanks, Mukta. Yeah. So, getting back to the discussion here, private sector banks are doing okay, and my guess is that PSU banks will also turn very positive after today's price action. Today, most of the PSU banks were doing well, so my guess is that we will be building on this column of X when today's prices get updated. So if you notice here, PSU Bank versus Nifty 50, we are in a major consolidation. So if we manage to get a breakout above these highs here, the series of high poles that we have in this area around 291, 292 on the relative strength chart, once we get a breakout above this, then we will see a nice kind of a momentum in PSU banking sector. And if you also look at the individual chart of Nifty PSU Bank, it will be a mirror image of the relative strength chart. So this is your PSU Bank index chart. So we have been in a consolidation for I don't know how many months. So this is like March, from March to November, for a good 8.5 months. We have been in a range bound consolidation. So If we manage to clear this trading range and get above these highs, it's going to trigger a nice little momentum in the PSU banking sector. And if you have a look at the individual charts of PSU banks, you will see a lot of interesting patterns. And any frontline this one PSU banking chart, it will definitely look bullish. So this is Bank of Baroda triangle breakout, but still below the moving average. If you look at the leader, SBIN. Okay, what is the setup in SBIN? Price is above the moving average, so the trend is bullish, and the software will take this as a neutral setup. It will classify this as a triangle, and it will tell you that the pattern is neutral, so the setup will be neutral. But if you think that the setup is bullish, I wouldn't blame you for that, because we had a buy signal, and this is probably just a pullback and resumption of uptrend. If you view it that way, it's perfectly legitimate to consider the setup as bullish. And of course, in 1% box size, the setup would be neutral, right? Because price is just below the moving average. It's barely flirting with the moving average. So strictly speaking, it's below the moving average. So the trend is bearish, but the setup is bullish. So again, neutral. And if we get, I don't know where SBI closed today, but this column qualifies for targets. So if we get a fresh buy signal, if it is triggered EOD today, these are the targets that we can probably look at: 344 and 403. And then 0.15%, again the same deal. A fresh buy signal will activate these targets. So my guess is 412 for 415 should be doable in SBIN. 291 is the close, is it? Okay. So 291, will that trigger a buy signal? Not it. 295.30 is required for a buy signal. So we will probably just be at the same level, I guess. That's okay. So OBC, okay, we'll take a look at OBC as well. Orient Bank, same, isn't it? My guess is most of the PSU banks chart will be almost similar. Same deal here. In this case, the buy signal has already been generated, and we are looking at targets of 101 and 140. And in 1% also the same day. In 1% actually, we probably had X at the same level, and buy signal probably would have been triggered today. Okay, so these are the sectors that are doing well. The top of the heap is financial services, followed by MNC, and the rest of the things are not too very positive. So if you sort it on the ranking score, you again do not have much change. The only thing is Nifty Bank is showing much more promise based on the ranking score sorting, and metals is number 3, and PSU banks is showing a lot more promise if you look at the ranking score. So personally, I think private bank and PSU banks, or the banking sector per se, could be the sector to watch out for. And I'm slowly turning, or rather, I'm veering towards a negative view on the pharma sector. I was relatively bullish on the pharma sector until recently, but looking at the recent price action, my bullishness in pharma sector has gone down considerably. So if you notice here, we had a lot of consolidation, and it's a clear breakdown in the relative strength chart of Nifty Pharma versus Nifty 50. Yeah, overall banking looks interesting, both public sector and private sector. Absolutely. And I will probably focus on the public sector banks because private sector banks, in any case, has been what shall I say, widely tracked, and most of the institutions and fundamental investors will be looking at it actively. The PSU banks, banking sector has been ignored, and we had a lot of those fundamental issues there, isn't it? Your NPS and all other stuff. So it's sort of a underowned sector. So there is a bigger possibility for buying interest to emerge in that sector. But of course, these are all just broad expectations. Stick to your chart, and that should be your guiding force. How would you read the MNC sector based on the ranking score? Okay, so the question is, the MNC sector was, if you sort it on the performance score, the MNC sector ranks at number two. But if you sort it on the ranking score, it has a negative score. So the question someone is asking is, how do you interpret this? So again, it depends. What you can do, best thing to do is to take a look at the individual chart. See, in the individual chart, it's a clear breakout, isn't it? MNC sector is probably telling you that it's getting into a fresh upcycle. Price has managed to edge above the moving average, and we have a multi-column breakout. So in 1%, price has managed to close above the moving average, but we had a big sell-off or a big cycle of underperformance, and probably we still don't know whether this is just a pullback, and whether we'll continue to head lower. We don't know that. And in 3%, we are again in a, after a big cycle of outperformance, we are into a series of underperformance for the last 4 months. So if you look at the near term picture, definitely it indicates that the MNC sector, the stocks from the MNC sector are finding some buying interest, isn't it? So what you will have to focus on going forward is, um, every day have a look at the ranking score. If the ranking score improves, and if that results in an improvement in the performance score also, then it's a very healthy sign. So MNC will be a sector to focus on going forward. So I think the MNC sector's ranking and performance score is likely to improve a lot after today's price action. Today I think most of the MNC stocks were doing well. So okay, let's just get rid of this. Exactly, Maruti, Colgate, Palmolive. I don't know whether Britannia will fall into MNC sector, but you had Nestle, you had a lot of other stocks. ABB was up, and a lot of MNC stocks. I can't recall the names, but a lot of the stocks were doing well. Okay, let's get back to our discussion. This is the slide presentation that we used last week, so you can go through the slides again just as a refresher. So we talked about this, we talked about this. So this is something that this is a slide that I inserted this week. So this gives you a broad idea about what uh, uh, what the matrix is. We have two kinds of matrix: performance matrix, ranking matrix. And again, performance matrix can be calculated on the price chart, individual price chart. The price, what I mean by price chart is the actual stock price, or um, the closing price of the index concerned. We can also calculate the performance matrix based on the relative strength chart, right? Same deal with the ranking matrix. We can calculate the ranking matrix based on the price chart as well as the relative strength chart. So last week and this week, our discussion has been and will be confined to the performance matrix. We will get into the ranking matrix next week or week after that. So until we have a very clear understanding about the performance matrix and how to use it, let's not get into the ranking matrix. Okay, is this making sense? So this again is a old slide which we had a look at last week. So this briefly gives you the logic for assigning the scores. Plus two. Someone asked, what does minus two indicate? Minus two indicates we have a sell signal and we are in a column of O. So it is the worst possible configuration that we can think of. Worst as in the bearish configuration that we can think of, and a buy signal and column of X is going to be the best possible bullish configuration. And this slide tells you how the chart will look. I hope there is no confusion on what we discussed last week, right? These are all the slides that we talked about last week. Can we go ahead and take our discussion to the next level, guys? Okay, fine. So I added one more slide to describe the setup. We frequently talk about setup, and there is a very clear cut definition about what the setup is. So, is the slide clear on your screens? The setup slide, is it legible? Can you read the contents? Okay, wonderful. So, setup consists of trend and pattern. A trend will be bullish if the price is above the moving average, and trend will be bearish if the price is below the moving average. That's it. Trend is very simple. And pattern, we have three different options for the pattern. The pattern can be bullish, the pattern can be bearish, or the pattern can be neutral. So a bullish pattern will be a double top buy or a low pole pattern. Okay. Which one? You the earlier flowchart, are you talking about this one, Nikhil? Okay, you can take a screenshot here. I told you last week also. There is a facility to take a screenshot of what you're viewing in the GoToMeeting software. So you just click on that button, and the screenshot will automatically be saved on your desktop or whatever. So getting back to this slide, it will be bullish if we have either a double top buy or a low pole pattern. It will be bearish if we have a double bottom sell or a high pole pattern, and the pattern will be neutral if it is anything other than these two. Typically, if we have three columns which are basically inside columns, wherein the last column is within the boundaries of the previous column and the previous column is within the boundaries of the column before that. Okay, so Soman's question is if the last column is a column of O, but a buy signal has been triggered, will that still be a bullish trigger or a bullish trend? Absolutely. So as far as the trend is concerned, so I got your question, Soman. I will address it. So as far as the trend is concerned, we the only question we need to ask ourselves is the price above the moving average or is the price below the moving average? So there is no third possibility there. So if the price is above moving average bullish and below moving average bearish, that seals the matter. As far as the pattern is concerned, if it is a bullish pattern, we have two possibilities there, isn't it? Price can be either in a column of X or in a column of O. If the if the buy signal is triggered in the penultimate column, which will mean that the last column is a column of O. If that is the scenario, it is still a bullish pattern because the last triggered pattern was a buy signal, isn't it? Just that we are in a column of O, it doesn't invalidate the bullish pattern. But In the performance score, we will be assigning a score of 1 there. Are you getting the distinction? So we are basically talking about this kind of a scenario, right? Wherein a buy signal has been triggered and we are in a column of O. The score, the performance score will be +1, but as far as the setup is concerned, it will still be a bullish setup. Does that answer your question, Soman? So the pattern will still be considered as bullish. So is the slide clear? So once you identify what the trend is and what the pattern is, then you can easily decide what the setup is. So the inset that you have in the slide gives you the details about how to identify the setup. So if the trend and the pattern is bullish, the setup is bullish, and if the trend and pattern is bearish, the setup is bearish. Any other combination, it's going to be neutral. Got it? Is it clear? Unless you tell me that you are absolutely clear about the performance scores and the setup, how to identify setup, there's no point taking this discussion any forward. Because if there is any disconnect or any sort of confusion in identifying the setup and or the performance scores, then the entire discussion that we are going to have today will be totally confusing and meaningless. Is it clear? Please explain again which portion, Karan? The setup. Okay. See, in point and figure chart, we have a concept called setup, and to identify the setup, we basically look at two different factors. The first factor is trend, and the second factor is the pattern. So, if you look at it in a chart, if I open any chart in any box size, you have a moving average, right? This is a 10 column moving average. We don't change the parameters here. So to determine the trend, the only question we will have to ask ourselves is whether the price is above the moving average or below the moving average. So in this case, price is definitely above the moving average, right? So the trend is bullish. The second question that you will have to ask yourself is what is the pattern? Whether a buy signal has been triggered or a sell signal has been triggered, or is there a triangle, or is there a high pole or a low pole. You just have to answer those questions. So in this case, a buy signal has been triggered, isn't it? This column of x has broken above the prior column of x. So clearly a buy signal has been triggered and price is above the moving average. So your setup is going to be bullish. Your pattern is bullish and the trend is bullish, so the setup turns bullish. Yeah, high pole is negated. Don't get into that. Those are analytical stuff. The high pole getting negated here is a value added information. For the setup calculation purposes, we are not worried about the high pole having been negated here. That is just an aside. Okay. That is a nice observation, but for this context about discussion on the setup and the scores, that's not an what shall I say, a pertinent point. So are you guys clear about the setup guide? Okay. So what I have done here is take a look at this slide and let me know if there is any confusion here. I hope it becomes slightly more legible now. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to combine the scores and the setup. I will tell you what this slide means when we go to the TradePoint software and do some further work there, these slides will make a lot more sense. But if you analytically look at it, it will make a lot of sense. I'm sure 99% of the people here will find this slide totally confusing, or you probably might not be in a position to um, interpret or understand the significance, right? Anyone in that camp who feels that this table doesn't make too much sense to me? Is there anyone in that camp? So unless of course if you have not attended last week, then I can totally understand. But if you had either attended last week's session or watched the recording, this table should sort of make sense to you. If it is still not making sense, that's okay. But that basically means that either you are not putting in the effort to understand this, or you want me to do the explaining part of it. Anyone who sort of understands the logic behind this table? Anyone in that camp? No, no one. That's so very disappointing here. Yeah, definitely. See, Akhil's observation is that half the battle is won when you understand, or rather, identify the bullish and bearish sectors, and take the trades based on the market behavior. Absolutely. So once that preliminary step is achieved, this table will again come into play. The approach that we are talking about here is going to be extremely handy, irrespective of what your overall logic or approach to markets are. Okay, fine. So what we will do is, let's go to the matrix table, and we will go to the P and F matrix, right? So what we will do is, we'll just focus on the F and O universe. And as I told you, if you notice here, I don't know how many of you use this effectively. We have the facility to change the box size based on which the setup is calculated when you run the matrix. The setup, I hope you guys recall what I mean by setup. Setup is this one. What is the trend? What is the pattern? And then decide what is the setup. Okay. So the setup, you can decide in which boxes you want to calculate the setup, and these box sizes here are used for calculating the performance score, the performance, and as well as the ranking score. We are not worried about the items listed on the right hand side of this performance score. Whatever is there to the right of this column, just ignore all that stuff. 1 2 3 4 5, these five columns you can ignore. We haven't discussed about that. We have been focusing our attention on the performance scores alone, and of course we are trying to integrate performance score with the setup. What is that, Mahesh? Second row, I didn't understand. In the PowerPoint, okay. What is it in the PowerPoint? In the second row, okay. 0.25%. First column is a first column is a triangle breakout. No, are you talking about a score of 1 in 0.25% box size? No, for a triangle breakout, the scores have to be 0. In the second row, we don't have a 0 there, isn't it? Are you talking about the -1 and 2? Yeah, minus one and two. This is a special category. We will talk about that. Probably I should have shared this table at the end. Just forget the table for now. Just focus on the output that we have generated here. So what I'm going to do now is I will probably just export this file. I will probably call it as F&O stocks PF matrix 0.25% setup and November 15 comma 2018, right? So what we will also do is we will run this scanner again, but this time what we are going to do is we are going to use a 1% box size to scan our candidates. Okay, so we will open this file and we will wait for the software to um, complete the scanner. Anyone has any clue why I'm rerunning this scanner again? What is the purpose? Because what do you think is going to change in the output now compared to what we did? See, compared to this output that we have here and the output that is generated here, what do you think is going to change? Do you think these scores are going to change here? These scores will not change, right? The performance scores are not going to change. The only change that's going to happen is with respect to the setup DTB level and DBS level. The last three columns are the columns where the real change will happen. Everything else is going to be the same between this output and the output that we already saved. So yeah, exactly, Prakash. Wow. Was it Prakash or yeah? The basic idea here is to get a dual time frame comparison, right? So we will probably save this as something else. The only change that we will have to do here is make it a 1% setup, right? And we will just merge these two files in Excel. So let's go to 0.25%, and so you need a little bit of Excel skill, basic Excel skill. This is set up in 0.25% box size. Okay, and this is what we are going to import now is set up based on 1% box size. We are just going to merge these two and then decide what to do with this, right? I'm not too sure if you guys are with me until now. Just give me a second, guys. Let us just set up this table. Even if you don't understand this step, we will sort things out. Okay, so this requires a little bit of Excel skill. So it's always nice to learn something new, and it's not going to take more than half an hour or maybe 1 hour for you guys to learn this Excel skill. If I can learn it, I'm sure you guys can learn it, right? So just bear with me. I'll tell you what I'm trying to do here. So what I have basically done here is from the 1% output that we have, i have I have imported these three columns. I have imported these three columns into this file. Otherwise, everything else is the same. Yeah, we can manually copy and paste. Yeah, absolutely. I think you can probably do that as well, as long as you ensure that it's sorted in the same order. Both the files are sorted in the same order. You can basically do that. It's a easier way to do it. You can just copy the three columns. What trying to do here is I'm trying to avoid the human error. That's it. So you can copy the last three columns and just paste it, but ensure that both the files are sorted alphabetically. Okay. Okay, fine. So we have everything set up. So if I'm looking for long candidates, what I basically want is the setup to be, let us start off with the first best possible combination. If I'm looking for long opportunities, I want the setup to be bullish in both the time frames, right? Everyone with me? It's the most logical approach, isn't it? In the 0.25% box size and in 1% box size, I want the setup to be bullish. This is the basic logical configuration that we can think about, correct? Everyone agrees? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. So then, coming back to the performance scores, what I want to see here is, okay, in performance score, in 1% boxes, we need not worry too much about what the scores are, right? Because we have ensured that the setup is bullish. So in a 0.25% box size, we are not interested in a score of 2, isn't it? I told you why last time, correct? If we have a score of 2, it basically means that a buy signal has already been triggered in that box size. So those are not the candidates that we are interested in, isn't it? Is everyone clear about what I'm trying to do here? So I am interested in the rest of the candidates. The so if I knock that off, what I get here is, maybe say I have 10 candidates which wherein the setup is bullish in 1% box size, and in 0.25% boxes we are in a pullback. And the DTB buy level is also given here. So what you can do is probably just copy this, take it to a new sheet, and remove everything else. You are just interested in the buy trigger, and maybe you can just calculate what is the potential move that is required for the buy signal to be triggered, and you can probably just focus on the candidates wherein the buy trigger is very close to the current market price in terms of percentage. Does it make sense? So PVR yesterday's close was 1410, and a buy signal is triggered at 1448.68. So roughly around 1449. So Raymond, your Raymond is probably the best possible candidate, right? Best possible as in the last closing price was 765, and your buy signal gets triggered at 774. It's hardly 1%. So this is what I was talking about in this slide. We are looking for a bullish setup in 0.25% and 1% box size, and we are looking for a score of in 1% box size. Actually, you can literally you need not worry too much about the scores there, the performance score, because we are ensuring that the setup is bullish. We will talk about the neutral setup in 1%, what it means, and why I have considered that. We'll get to that shortly. And of course, in 0.25% box size, you can look at. any of the scores there in 0.25% boxes except for two, because the score of two doesn't make sense, as it's not going to give us any entry opportunities. So we can do the same thing on the bearish side as well, isn't it? The same deal. What I will have to do is make the setup bearish, just filter or focus on the bearish setup in 0.25% as well as in, actually I should do it the other way around. Give me a second. Let's look for the bearish setup in 0.25%, and the setup should also be bearish in 1%. So we have a lot more candidates here. This basically probably tells you that we are still not out of the woods, isn't it? When we were looking for the bullish setup in both box sizes, we had just 10 candidates, but here if you notice, we have 25 candidates, which basically means that we are still not out of the woods as far as the index is concerned. So here again, we will not be interested in -2 because a sell signal has already been triggered in those candidates. If we have a score of -1, it basically tells you that we are in a pullback, right? Let me just a score of -1 basically means a sell signal is triggered and price is in a column of X now. So these are the candidates which can probably trigger a sell signal. Is it clear? So what I'm going to do is just focus. I ignore -2 and focus on the scores of two, and +1 also. I'm not interested. I'm just interested in -1. So these are the candidates where if the trend is bearish on the next day, these are the stocks that you can focus on. If you get a sell signal in any of these candidates, you can go ahead and short these guys. Okay. Okay, if the setup is bullish, do we still need a DTB to trigger for a buy? We are basically looking for such candidates, Rahul. The basic idea that or the basic concept I'm trying to tell you guys is to look for candidates wherein the setup is bullish, but we are in a slight pullback. So, if you notice, our definition of setup is very simple, right? The trend has to be bullish and the pattern has to be bullish. The pattern can be bullish. See, basically, what we are looking at is, say, for instance, this is not the right candidate. Let's probably take a look at something else. Hmm, I'm not getting a right, the ideal candidate to drive home the point. Let me see. Give me a second. Okay, so see, you have something wherein the score is already 2. So if the score is already 2, we are already in a column of X and a buy signal has already been triggered. So we cannot hunt for a trade in these candidates, right? And in this case, the setup is bullish because price is above the moving average and a buy signal has been triggered. Okay, there is a second category wherein the price is the setup is still bullish in this case, because the trend is bullish, price is above the moving average, so the trend is bullish, and the pattern is also bullish because we have triggered a buy signal and price is in a column of O. Do you understand the distinction between the Canfin Holmes chart and the Asian Paints chart? So here we have a potential to initiate a trade because we are in a pullback, and if there is a fresh breakout, we have a buy trade. Okay, so in both the cases, the setup is bullish. Okay, now getting back to the original slide, the other configuration that we can think about, even if you don't, if you cannot correlate with the setup across two different box sizes, if that sounds confusing, just forget it. The other possible combination that we can think about is a consolidation or a triangle pattern in both the box sizes, right? Wherein the score is going to be zero. If the score is zero, basically it indicates that we are in a triangle pattern. So if you look at Tech Mahindra, it is in a consolidation pattern across all box sizes. So we can expect a nice little move, a strong breakout pretty soon. So is the case with ITC and Kotak Bank also, right? So Bharti Airtel, if you notice, score of zero in three of the box sizes and a score of -2 in the fourth box size. So these are the candidates wherein you can see a potential breakout pretty soon. So maybe we can probably take a look at some of the charts here. Let us take a look at the Kotak Bank chart. Yeah, the breakout direction we don't know. We just have to wait for the buy or the sell signal to be triggered. But these are the candidates wherein we can expect some kind of a breakout to happen pretty soon. So if you notice, this is a triangle pattern, isn't it? Four columns, same deal in the 1% box size, same deal in the 3% in 3% box size. Strictly we will not call this a triangle, but for what shall I say, objectively identifying the patterns, we have classified this as a triangle pattern. So you get the logic here, right? So if we get a buy signal in Kotak Bank, it's going to be interesting. Oh, Bharti up 8% today. That's interesting. So let's take a look at Bharti. So major consolidation. Yesterday, price closed above the moving average, and in 1% box size, again it's a triangle out there, and in 3% we are the score of -2 because price is below the moving average and the sell signal has been triggered. But I'm not too sure how many people would have traded Bharti on the long side. If you did that, good luck to you, because objectively looking at it, we might have probably been looking for a downside breakout, isn't it? We had a big anchor column and a consolidation. Probably I would have set up my sell alert on this stock, and I would not have even bothered to look at the chart during the day. But okay, that's where you must be avoiding the bias and sticking to what the chart is saying. So we have talked about the first combination wherein 0.25%, right, and 1% box size. We talked about score of not equal to 2 in 0.25% and a score of 2 in 1% box size. So what are we trying to achieve here? We are in a buy signal and a bullish setup in the higher time frame, which is 1% box size, and we are also ensuring that we are not in a buy signal in a lower box size, so that we have a potential to initiate a trade. So the next possible configuration is 0 and 2 should be interesting, isn't it? It's in a buy signal in 1% box size, and it's in the consolidation in the 0.25% box size. This is also a nice configuration to deal with. 2 and 1 is okay. We will probably just list out all possible combinations. 2 and 1 will be the most preferred combination. 2 and 0 is not bad. 2 and -1 is okay, as long as the setup is bullish in 0.25% box size. When is this possible? We talked about it last week, if you remember. What is a scenario in which this can happen? A low pole, isn't it? When you have a low pole, it will the setup will turn bullish, but the performance score is going to be -1. So we'll be interested in those candidates as well. So you can flip around and think about the same configuration for the short side. The other thing that you can also think about is a 0 0 in both box sizes, in which case most likely you will have a neutral setup in both box sizes, right? 0 0 is not also not bad, but what you'll have to do is have a look at the individual chart and ensure that the price is above the moving average, at least in the 0.25% box size. Okay, tell me something. If the setup is bullish, right? If the setup is bullish in both box sizes, this first one is 0.25 and this is 1%, right? And if we have a score of 2 here and a score of 1, or we have a score of 2 here and a score of maybe say -1, we can still look at those candidates, isn't it? Are you getting the logic? What are we essentially looking at in these two instances? Any guess? Are you getting the logic what I'm trying to tell you? See, what I'm saying is I'm interested in a score of 2 and in 0.25% box size, and in 1% box size I'm interested in a score of either 0 or 1. So I'm just trying to invert the logic here. What I'm looking for is potential candidates which are turning around, wherein we have already triggered a buy signal in the lower box sizes, and we are expecting this bullishness to percolate to the higher box size. So in the higher box size, what I want to ensure is that I don't want a score of 2 there. I'm just looking for some kind of a consolidation or a pullback in the higher box size. Makes sense? Or is does it sound too very confusing about how to filter these things? So CanBank is a nice candidate. This one, Oriental Bank, is again an interesting candidate. If you look at the Oriental Bank chart, we already saw that, isn't it? By the way, where did Orient Bank close today? In 0.25% box size we already have a buy signal, so the score is 2, but in 1% box size the x is at the same level. So these are ideal candidates to be tracking. So a small breakout, or rather a small rally is going to trigger a buy signal, and you have the option of either taking the trade based on rather managing the trade based on 1% box size or 0.25% box size. Be clear about which boxes you want to initiate and manage the trades and stick to it. Just in case you didn't take the trade yesterday, what you can do is, if the trade gets triggered based on the buy signal in 1% boxes, you can go ahead and take the trade and put the stop loss. If 0.25% boxes is your operating time frame, then you can place the stop loss based on 0.25% box size. 91.75, is it? Okay, that's a nice move. So yesterday's close was 87.90. Today the close is 91, so close to 4.5%. Not bad, isn't it? So these are the ideal candidates that you must be focusing on. And the good thing here is the buy trigger price will also be given by the software to you. In this case, we will have to look at the DTP level in 1% box size, right? So 87.90 was yesterday's close, and your buy trigger happens at 88.10, 88.03. So obviously, we can take it as 88.10. So a 20 paisa move is going to trigger a buy signal. Got it? So these are the combinations that you can think about for identifying buy candidates. See, you can do the same thing once you identify the sectors also. See, for instance, if you think that say PSU banking sector is what you want to focus on because things are looking good in the PSU banking sector, what you can do is you can choose PSU bank index and do the same thing. You can generate the P&F matrix there, and then do this exercise about filtering out candidates wherein the score is 2 in the 2% box size, and where the score is not equal to 2 in 0.25% box size, or do the reverse wherein the score is 2 here and score is not equal to 2 in 1% box size. So you will get potential candidates which could be traded the next day. So, if you want to make it very logical and methodical, you start off with the RS matrix, identify the stock sectors that are doing well, and then actually what you can do is you can go to the RS matrix, right, and maybe choose a slightly broader universe, say Nifty 500, and use the denominator as Nifty 50. Okay, okay. Let's choose Nifty 50 in both cases because the scanner will be very time consuming, the relative strength scanner. I'm just giving you some ideas here. So what we are trying to do here is trying to identify stocks that are outperforming the Nifty. So we will probably, if you have a bullish bias, you can look for candidates which have a score of greater than 4 in the performance matrix. Or if you're looking, or if you're bearish, if you can focus on candidates which have a score of greater than 4, minus 4 or more. So here you can do the filtering. So in the performance score, I'm interested in candidates which are equal to 4. It says above 4. I don't know whether it means greater than or equal to 4, or only above 4, but it doesn't really matter. Let's make it 3 then, and we can save it to a group. So we can give a group name here, and if you go to the, you can do the same thing in your P&F matrix. You can choose, you can focus on this universe. um what is the name we give? Strong RS stocks, right? There is something wrong here. I wonder where it gets saved. So if everything works perfectly, the group that we saved there should be appearing here, and then you can run the matrix on the selected stocks. So basically, you are confining yourself to the strong RS stocks, and you are looking for candidates wherein um, you have a bullish setup, and prices whatever we discussed until now. Are you getting the idea, or do you think I'm talking something that is way too complicated? Did you guys at least the key takeaway for you guys should be how to use the filter? See, we roughly talked about it last week also, wherein I said you can filter out candidates based on the score of +2 here and the score of what is it? A score of not equal to 2 here. Today the only value addition we have done is to incorporate the setup in the higher box size, so that we are trying to ensure that we have a bullish setup across two box sizes. Will this also work on options? I really cannot comprehend that question here. See, you can shortlist candidates using this method, and then you look at the individual options chart, and you decide to buy or sell based on the options premium chart. That's it. Can we take a setup on 0.15%? Absolutely. You can choose whatever setup you want. The only thing is, if you want to compare across two different box sizes, then you'll have to run the setup twice, or run the scanner twice. You can use any box size here. It doesn't really matter. So we can look at a score of 0 or 2, or maybe even 1 is fine. And in 0.25% box size, we will be interested in again the same deal, right? 0, 1, and we are not interested in 2. So this is the maximum list of stocks that we can look at from the F&O universe, wherein, see, again, what you can probably do is you can quickly run through this the candidates that have been filtered out, and you can probably just focus on stocks and sectors, stocks from those sectors which are currently doing well. Obviously, banking sector is doing well, financial services is doing well, you can focus on those stocks. MNC is doing well, so again you can focus on those stocks, and look at the individual chart, and pull out the relevant details from this table. Okay, so the question here is: are you ignoring 2 and 3% box sizes? You can include that as well. Why I am ignoring that for the moment is, I'm basically catering to people who are extremely short-term traders, short-term by traders, as in who are looking at the next 3 to 5 days, and or maybe a week to 10 days max. If you're trying to build a portfolio or something like that, it definitely makes sense to look at the higher time frames as well. And in that case, you will have to probably look at a bigger universe. See, the universe that we are looking at is only F&O stocks. You can probably run the scanner based on all stocks. Here, what you can do is choose all scripts, and you can probably run this. Let the scanner run in the background, and you can adopt the same thing here. If you if you use uh, if you want to focus on all this one box sizes, you can probably do the same thing. You are interested in scores of 2 or 0 in bigger box sizes, right? It should either be bullish, or it should be in a consolidation. You are not interested in other combinations, right? In 3 and 2% box sizes, you can choose. You can be very particular about scores of either 2 and 0. And in 1% box size, you can probably accommodate a score of 1 also, wherein we are just in a minor pullback. And in 0.25% box size, you are definitely not interested in the -2, -1, and you are not interested in 2. So this is like absolute best of the best candidates. So if you get a buy signal in any of these candidates, you must be interested in taking those long positions. right? So unfortunately, I think none of the candidates that appear here managed to trigger a buy signal and give you a decent move today. But that is not a compulsion, isn't it? This basically tells you that these are the candidates that are very bullish in higher time frames and as in some kind of a pullback or are ready to trigger a buy in the lower time frame. You hardly have any banking stocks here. Yeah, that's true. You probably have a Kotak Bank and RBL. That's it. So maybe sometime next week or in the forthcoming days, you could probably see some of these stocks coming into play. So you got the idea, right? How to use the information that's available in the P and F matrix. See here, what we have is we have this feature called save to group, which apparently is not properly working. I will alert Prashant about this. The basic idea here is that instead of focusing on or instead of doing the work here in Excel and looking at the entire output, what we can do is we can fine tune the list in the software itself. Suppose say if you are interested in a cumulative score of say 3 or 4 and beyond and nothing less than that, and if you're looking for long candidates, you can give a number here. You are looking at the performance score, so choose on the performance button. You are looking for scores above 3, so input write the value of 3 here, and if you click on save to group, what this ideally should do is focus on candidates where the cumulative score is greater than 3. So if I save this, if everything works perfectly, right, what should happen is that the group that I saved now should appear here. So okay, PF is working. This is the score that we gave, right? Sorry, the name that we gave, right? PF greater than 3. Only now relative strength, it doesn't seem to be working, but here it seems to be working. So what you can do is you can run the scanner again and just focus on those candidates where the score is greater than 3. Actually, this will be far more meaningful and handy if the feature works perfectly in the relative strength chart. So basically you can shortlist the stocks that are relatively strong and weak. You create a separate universe directly and then run the P and F matrix based on the strong set of stocks and the weak set of stocks, and then you can easily shortlist potential long and short candidates, right? Does it make sense? No, yeah, I think this is a problem that I have been noticing for quite a while, Mangesh ji. In RS Matrix, I don't know whether there is something wrong in my installation, but whenever I save something in based on the RS chart, it doesn't get saved. Let's probably try it one last time. Let's settle for a slightly smaller universe, right? Let's run the. So just like we saw in the P and F matrix, it should work perfectly, or rather, it should work in a similar way in RS matrix as well. But somehow it does not seem to be working. So I want the score of greater than 3 and save group. Okay, let me. Let's give it a shot. No, there's something wrong here. It doesn't give. It's not getting saved. Oh yes. So Thiru sir says the pop-up message saying that the list has been successfully saved is not coming up. Yeah, I think there is something wrong with this particular feature. We'll have this sorted out. That's okay. But as long as you understood the basic concept about what is the purpose of the performance score, what do we do with or how do we interpret the performance score across box sizes. Well, if you have understood those concepts, it's good enough. So everything begins from understanding the logic here, how the scores are given, how the chart will look. If you are clear about this, then shortlisting candidates using the matrix output should be very easy. You can easily decide that I'm not interested in these candidates, these scores I'm not interested, these are the scores that I will be interested in, stuff like that. Probably what you can also do is you can just focus on scores of score of 2 in both the box sizes, right? So you have this list ready wherein a buy signal has been triggered in 0.25% box size and 1% box size also. Keep this list ready, and the next day on an intraday basis, whenever you get a buy signal, you can probably focus on those candidates also. If you're an intraday trader, you can probably just focus on the candidates which are already in a buy signal in 0.25% and 1% box size, because they are telling you that they are strong momentum candidates wherein a buy signal has already been triggered. So if you get a fresh buy signal in the intraday chart, those are the candidates which are most likely to do well the next day. So for intraday traders, this will be very helpful. But I am basically a positional trader, so I am basically looking at candidates wherein the score is not equal to 2, because I want fresh actionable ideas, right? But if you're an intraday guy, you can definitely look at the score of 2 and 2. You have not clicked on ranking. Do you mean to say in the output I haven't clicked on the ascending or descending order? Is that what you're trying to say, KVK? That shouldn't matter actually. See, the basic idea of giving a filter option there is to filter out the candidates, right? Why do I have to sort it and then filter it? I don't think that step is essential. But let me just talk to Prashant and get that sorted out. Yeah, otherwise you can always do it in Excel. What you can probably do is actually you can do something which is a little bit more laborious. What you can do is start off with the RS matrix, use Nifty. Over the weekend probably you can do this. Choose Nifty 500 as your numerator and Nifty 50 as the denominator, right? And run the scanner. You can export it to Excel, and you can open that file and then incorporate the performance scores and the setup into that file. You can either cut and paste, or you can do the VLOOKUP thing, so that you have one consolidated file wherein you have the relative strength scores as well as the the performance scores. Then it becomes easy for you to really focus on the outperformers, and you can just look for candidates wherein there is a pullback in the actual chart. Does it make sense? It's not going to take more than 15-20 minutes or half an hour max. It wouldn't take too much of a time. Generate this output, sorry, the relative strength output, and try to incorporate or merge uh, the the p and of matrix scores along with the setup. If possible, incorporate the setup as well, and then you can easily identify buy and sell candidates. Okay, guys. Are you? Is everyone absolutely clear about the performance score, the performance metrics? If you say yes, we can go forward and talk about the ranking metrics. Next week and the week after that, we will talk about the ranking metrics and how the scores are assigned and all that stuff. Right? Okay. So next week we will discuss about ranking metrics, and then we will try to integrate performance and ranking metrics together, and we will also try to tie in the relative strength into it. So in the meanwhile, what you can also do is there is something called a smart scanner, and in the smart scanner there is something called the pattern finder. This is a wonderful tool that you can use, right? I'll just tell you what can be done with this. F&O stocks, again you can choose the boxes in which you can run this. So what it is going to do is for the entire universe it will scan through, and it will tell you what are the patterns that are readily identifiable in these stocks. If there is no pattern, then it will tell you no pattern qualified from the list, right? So you can again export this to Excel. Click on the export button, you can take it to Excel, and then do those filtering and all that stuff. So you what you can also do is you can run this on two different box sizes and then merge the two files and find out candidates where there is some kind of a bullish or a bearish pattern in two different box sizes. Or the other option that you can think about is you can just export this and try to incorporate the performance scores into the file, and you can so that you can easily identify candidates where a buy or sell signal will be triggered the next day. Yeah, fine. Akhil's point is well taken. Akhil is saying that I must probably give some homework for you guys so that you put in that extra effort. But we are well past that school or college days, right? Even in college, there is no concept of homework, and we are well past that stage. So that's why I didn't or I don't get into this thing of giving homeworks. And the other thing that I have noticed with see, I've been doing these webinars and seminars for many years. So the general observation that I have had is that it's very difficult to make people do the work. If you're interested, if you're ready to put in the hard work, you will in any case do it. If you're not someone who is unwilling to or willing to do any work, then even if I give the homework, it's not going to make any sense, isn't it? So that's why I don't have because I tried that in the Telegram group as well. I tried to ask a few questions in order to make you guys think or come up with some answers, and there is absolute silence for the next half an hour, 1 hour, half a day, or whatever. Then I literally gave up. I thought, what is the point? So I'm trying to give you material totally free of cost, and if you're not willing to reciprocate by putting in the effort, then it's not going to motivate me, isn't it? And I'm not the loser in any case. So okay, let's not get into that. uh, but the other point is well taken, Akhil. The other point Akhil is making is that at least let people come prepared for the next session. So as I told you, be absolutely clear about the performance course. What is the basis, what is the logic, and all other stuff. Sit through the presentation, or watch the presentation if need be, of the previous week and today's presentation, so that there is no disconnect or any loose ends. So next week and the week thereafter, I will try to talk about the ranking score. So if possible, if you have Prashant's book, I don't know if the book talks about the ranking scores. I'm not too sure. I don't recall. But go to the website and do some reading about the ranking score. There is some material there in the website and YouTube videos. You can you can watch them. And in any case, just like last week, we will start right from the scratch and talk at length about how the ranking scores are arrived at and how to interpret them. So, so as I told you, you can export this output. I see what I'm sharing with you guys with respect to taking it to Excel and doing all these things. No one told me that these things can be done out of my own interest. Whatever I'm telling you or sharing with you is hours and hours of thought process and hard work that I have put in. I'm just giving it to you literally at what shall I say, with on a platter to you guys, right? So you can export this, and in the Excel sheet again you can incorporate the performance scores along with the setup, and then you can do the filter and easily identify candidates based on the patterns that are probably you'll have some affinities towards a particular pattern. Someone probably will like a trap pattern, someone will like a super patterns, whatnot. So you can look and focus on those patterns. So here, if you notice, Britannia X at the same level, we have a probable bullish super pattern. So these are the candidates that you must be focusing on in 0.25% box size, right? So if you double click, you have a possible super pattern, and we have X at the same level, which basically means that a small move is going to trigger a buy signal, right? And if you open the chart, you can see that the setup is bullish. If you want, you can also look at the 1% box size. You can see that a trap pattern has been completed, setup has turned bullish, price is above the moving average, buy signal has been triggered. So this is an ideal candidate for you to be focusing on, isn't it? So X at the same level is a very nice pattern that you can focus. X or maybe O at the same level are the patterns, or the stocks that you must be focusing on, because those are the candidates which will easily trigger a trading opportunity the next day. Nifty 50, okay, Divi's Lab, Bharat Forge, and IDFC Bank. These are the candidates wherein the X was at the same level in 0.25% box size. And if you look at O at the same level, you only have Tata Chemicals. So if you look at the Tata Chemicals chart, the O is at the same level. So a minor fall is going to trigger a sell signal. Whether you want to take that short trade is something that you will have to decide. But the software is giving you a nice little input that you can capitalize on. So a bullish super pattern. I'll not be interested in bullish super pattern because uh, the buy signal has already been triggered. So it's not something that I'll be very interested in. So this um, what is it? Probable super pattern is something that I'll be interested in definitely. So probable super pattern. Again, a probable triple bottom sell and triple top buy are candidates again you can focus on. Whereas probable triple top buy is Glenmark. What else? And triangle four column is something that you can focus on. Again, these are candidates which are potential breakout candidates. Again, these candidates in any case will you can use the P and F matrix and identify these candidates because the score is going to be zero there, right? So if a triangle is not a big deal as far as this particular scanner is concerned. because we can easily identify the triangle candidates from the P&F matrix. So X at the same level again is something that I'll be interested in. So I am sure you get the idea, right? So okay, guys, let's just wrap it up here. I'm not too sure if I have confused you guys today, or whether there is some value add to you guys today. From the response I see on the screen, I'm not able to make up my mind one way or the other. Okay, let me quickly see if there are any unanswered questions here. Patterns change post EOD. Absolutely. Once today's price data is updated, everything will go for or everything will change. Definitely, it will change. So what we have discussed today is with respect to yesterday's close. So once today's price action is included, everything can change. Okay, thanks, guys. Will meet next week, wherein we will take up the discussion on the ranking matrix, and we will take it forward from there.